Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen you, man. And
Yeah.
probably you're in Calgary still, right? So, or
Yes. Yeah.
um,
Well over 2008, 2009, maybe.
well, I left in 2008, so it
Okay.
would be 2007, 2008, probably the last time we actually
Yeah. Would have been
hooked,
something with
hooked up
maybe
for a
with
beer.
Richard Evans or something happening there. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to Richard's place for a beer
Yeah.
with you. That was good. Well, we had a
Yeah.
lot of beer, more than
Yeah.
I was expecting at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have been the last time.
Yeah, maybe. And he passed on. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah, that was crazy. Like I never really interacted with him too much. I liked the guy, but
Oh,
I never
yeah.
interacted with him too much. Then his wife um, passed away, or he passed away, and she put it on
Yeah.
Facebook. Like, holy cow!
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I do.
surprising.
Yeah, I was quite shocked to see some of the images of him. Like I had really outside of Facebook hadn't seen him since probably I'm gonna say 2009, around that time too. And
Okay, yeah,
just the odd little see him on Facebook, or that was about it. So
yeah,
and didn't know too much about what was happening in his life or things like that, and just the odd nugget would pop up here and there, right?
for sure. Yeah,
We all get
yeah,
busy in our lives, and sort of move on to who we were before. I look
yeah, yeah,
there's a there's a saying there, we're people refer to us as like human beings, right? Where we're a being that we're stagnant like rocks, but we're not, right? And I like to say that we're human becomings. We're always changing and morphing and becoming more of maybe what we're meant to be in some cases, and so you're
yeah,
constantly changing in so a lot of what you were maybe get left behind, or closeted, or um, metamorphosized into something, right? It's interesting. So you may have so the commonalities disappear over time, and things change, right?
yeah. They do. That's why I like this little experiment I'm doing here.
Mhm.
Going back and talking to people. I've talked to people I know since kindergarten or before
Yeah,
kindergarten, and I talked to
yeah,
people I've met just recently and became friends with them there. And some people are doing really, really cool, interesting things, and other people are just friends that I know that I just want, I like enjoy chatting with. And through them,
yeah.
you get to see that sort of yourself reflected back at you a little bit. So
Hmm.
there's what's changed, what's different, and but it's seeing how they've changed as well too.
Yeah.
And generally, people I don't think people have changed that much, at least the way I remember them. Um, so maybe I haven't changed myself, but it's nice to see that this is my evolution from when I was 5 years old until
Yeah.
today, which is
There's
which is really it's a neat, wonderful experience I've been having here over the past 6 months or so.
mhm. there's tenets of your personality that will remain with you from life, and by theory, I think it begins at like 2 years old.
Yeah,
This is who you are, right? Or these particles are going to form who you are for the rest of your life. And so, but yeah, those things are always in
yeah,
the groundworks of your personality, or some of the basis of why you do the things you do, or I don't know if I think those out sometimes, and why would I do that? Why do I do those things? Right?
we're all idiots. I think
Yeah, and they're
that's my theory, and it's a pretty solid one. I think we're all idiots in our own way. I find,
yes, of course.
a little idiocy everywhere. So, well, I guess for people that are popping in here, you're my friend Darcey Jerome. We know each other from our blogging days.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
My
That's
last
right.
attempt to join up with the social media revolution. I
Yeah.
started my blog it was after the Flames 2004, my first one. I've had probably about 3 or 4 iterations of my blog,
Mhm.
both online. And then
Yeah.
2005 or so, there was sort of a group of Canadian conservative blogosphere, as it was called. And you're a part of that little crowd as well, too. And
Yeah.
we kind
Yeah.
of
It was a
thought
lot of fun.
we knew everything. didn't know much. But there was a good group of people. I got to meet, interact with people from across the country and beyond.
I still hold on to a lot of those contacts. Not everyone, but there's a few cores like yourself. There was of course there's Richard, Kate, Small
Yeah,
Dad, and things like that.
Kate's one of she's still doing it, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
She gives no F's at all. Like
it takes a lot of work and energy to do all that. So it's
yeah, she's built a little community for herself on her own website, and she's doing it all on her own, and you got to respect that.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Yeah,
I don't know why she keeps doing it, but she's still doing it, and good for her on that. And so like by building community, she has the guest bloggers and other people kind of providing that content, but then she's respectful to her the community, which is interesting, because you see that with like say Redditors or with on Discords or Patreon, where creators or people creating content, like they develop that really good rapport with their community generally within that kind of group. Well, she's been doing that for 15 years.
Yes.
Or more, right? And
yeah.
She kind of did it all on her own, and she's hosted a website all on her own. And she pops in and out of Twitter once in a while. She follows it, but she's not there. So yeah, she's in Saskatoon or near Saskatoon. Yeah. So we've met a few times. And then guys, like Stephen Taylor was part of that group, and he's a big conservative.
Yeah. I don't know where he is. There's some of the people I hadn't heard of, and
he's in Toronto.
Yeah, always in Toronto. Okay.
Or maybe Ottawa. I mean, and then Damien Penny is another part of that crew. So there's a few people there. And it was a fun time. It was so much fun because nobody knew what the hell they were doing. Everybody thought we were going to change the world. And you were Dust My Broom. Dust My Broom.
Yeah.
That's a song. Who sang that song?
Robert Johnson song. I think it was 1932, and I think I don't know if that was the original version, but it was one of the early recordings of that song. And it was, for me, it was about an exchange of ideas. So the original Jumping the Broom was a way to, during the slavery time, was a way for blacks to marry other slaves. So they would jump the broom. Somebody jump the broom, and then they would be married. To dust the broom, and they would divorce. So you could jump the broom, jump into an idea or a conversation, or you could dust the broom and sort of get out. And that's where that sort of comes from.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's a nice little link. Well, you're a blues guy too. You're Manitoba Métis. That's your background, right? You grew up in Manitoba, I think, right? So
in the north. Yeah. The end of the highway, it's in Thompson, north of Manitoba.
My dad's sister lived in Thompson for a long time. I think is my cousin up there. I don't know. I think they're all in Winnipeg now or near Southern Alberta, because most people move eventually south, right?
Yes, as soon as you can. As soon as you can, as soon as you're able, you'll leave. It's
the capital of Manitoba's north. I think that's the way to describe it. So right in the heart of Manitoba there.
The third, traditionally it was the third largest city, and it was like 10,000-12,000 people up there.
Yeah.
The outlying region, it was called the hub of the north, and the main region, because you had Thompson, and then within 200-300 miles you had 19 Indian reserves or First Nations reserves now. And so even in the early days, it was the Wild West, right? So everybody would get their payments or their Manitoba Hydro flood money, and the town would just become Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So it was crazy, and that was when I was younger. It was crazy, like when I was younger and into my high school years and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And after that, it continued to grow in that way, where it was the most dangerous city in Canada. I think it was like our most violent city in Canada, like 6-7 years running. And I think Lethbridge, Alberta has that that badge of honor now, right?
I don't know. My parents have been in Lethbridge. It's different parts of Lethbridge, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, so I go to Lethbridge once in a while. But yeah, you moved around a bit though. You got out. You escaped.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been back. Last time I was back was in 2010, and I remember sort of between the last city, which is the Paw, Manitoba, and Thompson. There's almost no radio. Right, there's no radio station, so you got probably 2-3 hours drive of quiet. If you don't have a CD player, or tape or something like that, you've got nothing to listen to.
Yeah, well, probably satellite radio's changed that now too.
Maybe, yeah. I didn't have it at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was winter time, and so it's just maybe a 3-hour drive of highway and snow-covered trees.
That reminds me though, because I went to Prince George 2 summers ago, I guess now, and that's like there's a place after Jasper. They go to Prince George. It was like,
oh yeah,
2 miles or 2 hours of just nothing. There's no turnoffs. There's not a farm. There's nothing.
Nothing. Actually. Yeah.
So it's I get it. So it's probably more so there.
Yeah.
A little bit further out there.
But as you, and so you come out of this, and as you sort of approach the city, you come up a hill, and as you're coming up, you can start seeing the stacks from the nickel refinery of the mine there. Right. You come over, and you can see the town, and then the old sick feeling comes into my stomach. Yeah. Another good friend of mine. You may remember him well, John Brunel, or Shere Khan. We grew up together up there, and the same. He would have.
Oh, really? Hey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've known each other since we're grade 1, 2.
John Brunel was Shere Khan.
Yeah.
Like the company in Saskatoon here.
I
don't know where they're from.
Well, is
that a different? You're talking about a blogger, Shere Khan?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a company called Shere Khan.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But I know the name John Brunel, and he must have been one of those bloggers. I don't know if I remember him well. Maybe I do.
Yeah, it was under the Broom as Shere Khan. And
that guy, Shere Khan, like the tiger.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. I remember that guy. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you had a bunch of characters writing on your blog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Characters, I use that term very deliberately, right?
Yes. So we had grown up together up there, and still maintained this friendship that we've had for since we were little kids.
Oh yeah.
But he would have the same sense of foreboding as he was going back, right? So he does everything he can not to have to go there. But it was my sister lives there and works for the RCMP now, and her husband works for the mine, and which is dying, right? Because of everything been dying, and they can't get out because they own property and houses, and where do we go, right? And because she works for the RCMP, she's aware of all the action and the temptations to her children and things like that with gangs and things that were just starting to foment when I was a kid. And I remember the sort of the early hip hop influences. It was migrating into the north. Now it's First Nations and some of the groups are sort of almost paralleled with this sort of hip hop rap movement, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of identities that are shared.
Yeah, which is weird when you think about it, but that time it sort of come out of the in the mid-late 80s. It's sort of come out of the sort of breakdancing stuff, right? And so
I see that.
We would have community events and for breakdancing or things like that, and it was always the native people who ruled at it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But they started donning the gear and the headbands and the dressing up the style that sort of morphed into this whole hip hop movement, right?
That's crazy.
Of course, gangs and things like that. Right?
So you weren't a hip hopper at all?
No, no, not at all.
Me neither.
I was gee, in those days I was into the, can't tell at all now, but I was into the hair metal thing.
Sure, you were. Yeah.
I was a Black Sabbath guy, and Jethro Tull, and even one of my friends at the time, we would skip the odd class, go to his place, and they had his dad had an old record player, fancy record player in the basement, a big stereo and a wall of records of things like Supertramp and all these stuff, right?
Which we love to have all those today, right? That's
yeah. Still listen to some of that music. Yeah, still listen to that. And I'm sort of into that kind of stuff, and the early Eagles records and things like that, right? When when you listen to our records, they have so much more overhead than than the CDs and stuff that come out today.
Yeah, they do, and it's kind of fun. Yeah, you don't notice it until you listen to records, and sometimes we have friends with the records, and when I go to their houses, whatever, I'm just like, I'm there, throwing them on, and just problem with that is like with CDs, you just change the track, and then with very easily, and then now with iTunes, you just go rip through pretty quickly. But back then, I found like even recently to try to move the tracks. No, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to play the album, and LPs work really well with the album formats. Everything fit really well.
Yes.
Ever since like Sgt. Pepper's, it was kind of like that with, or even Pet Sounds before that. Like there was a sort of wholeness within an album. You didn't mess with that. But nowadays, everything just gets produced.
Yeah, you just pick the song, and you don't even know what else they've done. Pretty much.
It's kind of too bad because it's nice to be able to get into album just like sort of just there's a message being said. And there's a thematic kind of overlay through the album. You just want to follow it through.
Yeah.
So it's changed. I still listen to albums. It's like I rather just download the whole album or buy the whole album and just listen in whole if I can.
Yeah.
I do have a sort of mixes on my phone, but I don't really do that anymore. I listen to doing a road trip or something like that. So.
Yep.
Anyways. Change.
Yeah, I don't even remember the last time I bought a CD, or just there's no need really anymore.
I buy them for like independent artists, friends of mine or whoever that make an album. So I'll buy their album.
Yeah.
So I don't mind paying whatever it is for their album.
Huh. So what do you listen to now? Do you listen to anything new? I've come across
nope.
Some of this. I have no clue. Some of it doesn't even sound like anything to me. I sort of stopped listening to modern stuff in the 90s, right? And outside of some of the Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam stuff, right? And then I just stopped, just ignored most of it.
I was buying a lot of CDs when I first moved to Calgary. If you remember Megatunes, I think it's gone now. It's on 17th, independent record store, and I would go down every Saturday. Because I was living just south of, I was on 25th or something like that. So just south of 17th, Southwest. And I loved it. I didn't have a car for a while because it was just living the best neighborhood. I just walked to work and then just walk to the bar and walk wherever. I could walk to the Saladome for Flames games. It was amazing. And so every Saturday I get up, I walk down to Megatunes. I'd take a trip, and then what's new? And I got to know the owner a little bit, and he may like this. You probably don't like that. And he was a pretty astute guy, and he was pretty solid on his picks. So for about 2000 to say 2004, I had like a ton of albums. I downloaded them and put them all to my iTunes at the time. So I still have a lot of those ones. So I know a lot of stuff at that point. Then after that, it kind of starts trailing off. So there's a few guys that they produce albums. Friends of mine that still do that. I'll buy theirs. There's my buddy Brent Tyler. He does. I'm not sure, he's produced 3 albums. He's in Calgary. He was at my wedding and actually played at my wedding. He's a great guy. He's my second guest on my podcast. And the reason why I got him, because I use his song as my little theme intro.
Oh, great.
So he's a great songwriter, good live performer. And then there's a couple other guys. There's a band called Minor Matter out of Saskatoon.
Yeah.
I used to work with this one guy who's a drummer, and they're a very strange band, but they make this very nice ethereal music. They just kind of like, it's good to have on at the lake at nighttime and just go outside and kind of turn it on. And I wish actually that's a band. I don't know if they have any LPs. I would actually buy an LP player just to play an LP of theirs. Very strange kind of people. But like, do I buy new? No, I don't buy new music at all. My wife's actually really into. She's into blues, which is weird, and which I didn't know about her. And then now we were watching Yellowstone, the show on Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah, okay. I've not watched it. I've seen the ads though.
It's like Sopranos and Godfather, as if it was set in a modern Montana ranch. So, but it has a great soundtrack. Like you would like the soundtrack. In fact, you really have to watch the show. Just go find the soundtrack. It's country blues.
Yeah.
So like in Chris Stapleton type music, which is, I don't know. I don't think there's a better performer nowadays than Chris Stapleton, because the guy can play anything. Like he's just amazing. Country, blues, rock, pop music. The guy can do it all. And so there's a lot of this really beautiful sort of modern blues tracks. So, Americana. I'm not sure if that's what they call Americana now. Guys like
like a Rye Cooter. Yeah. Like a Rye Cooter sort of somber feel. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually not modern day Rye Cooter type of thing.
Yeah.
So it has that sort of ethos with sort of modern techniques and stuff. Like Coulter Wall, I like a lot. Coulter Wall, the Brad Wall's kid, which is amazing. But he's like, he plays, and he's just a young guy, and he has this like voice, and he just writes these really dark tunes. It's like, man, I love that kid. It's hilarious. So there's good modern music. There is good modern music out there, but you have to kind of know where to search for. And modern top 40 is just you can't. Well, my kid likes it. He's 8, so
yeah. How old are your kids?
They're 8 and 9.
So. Same age as mine.
Are they really? I was worried about that. 8 and 9. You got a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
It's such a fun age right now. They're not teenagers yet, which is good. They're starting to get a little stinkier though, I noticed. So we're making them bath more. They won't bath unless you make them, right? So if people bath once a week, if that, like, when's the last time you bath? Oh, like, well, okay, now you're gonna do it like 2 or 3 times a week minimum. That's what you're doing. Stinky little buggers. Yeah, so it's a good age though, because they're so smart and astute, and they have a lot of energy, and they don't have that cynicism yet that you get when you become a teenager, right? Or sullenness.
Yes.
And not all teenagers get it, but you know,
lots of energy for sure.
Yeah. So you got married, hey? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, honestly, about your wife. So when would have you started to get together? When would you have gotten married?
That was back in 2010, and then she fell ill after my son Gabe was born, and then became terminally ill, and so I ended up pretty much on my own, raising the 2 kids, and then into a position where I became a caregiver for her, and so it morphed, change in this thing, and so that lasted 6-7 years, and
wow.
So she passed away in 2008 or 2018, sorry.
I'm so sorry, man. I didn't know that was even going on with you.
No, I didn't. Life was so busy for me, working, kids, going to school. I was actually in I was in seminary part-time at night, doing things like that. And and it was a blessing that she had passed. She was in constant pain, turmoil, severely mentally ill, and so she, even in the last 2 years, I could say that she wasn't really alive in her side. Just sort of existing, and she had already died once, right? And they had resuscitated her, and something had happened worse in that period where was even worse mentally and worse in her personality wise than she ever was before, and so it was like looking after another child, And so in the last 2 years, she had spent the majority of her time in hospital.
Okay.
And then they would send her home for a brief period and then come out. So that was, 2018, and it was a good thing. I even spoke at her funeral and stuff like that. So it was a relief, if I could say it that way, that she passed, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing, and it was sort of an odd thing, when she passed. There was no panic on my part. I'd found her and things like that, and my brother and his wife had come over, and a couple of the pastors and friends from church had come over, and there was no, we drank tea, and the coroner was there, and EMS, and everything was okay. Everything was okay.
Yeah, that's just such a crazy journey that you would have had to go through.
Yeah, it was
with all of that, and having those kids at that time, and such young kids, and then that's their first memories of their mom. Was
they don't they don't seem to recall too much about her, just pieces here and there, right? It's a hard thing, but a lot of it ended up being, it was negative things. So in fact, it's good that they sort of have these. My son was younger, so of course he doesn't have much in a way. My daughter was a year older, so she had spent some time with her here and there, and so her memories are very small, almost like little sound bites of things here and there. And doesn't have any really recall of anything substantial, which is okay,
But that's gonna come back though, because they're gonna become curious at some point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's fine. They
So how do you talk to them about? What was her name? Sorry.
It was Melody.
Melody. Okay.
And so they were aware of the whole dying process. I never shied away from them on that. Prior to that, one of my closest friends was a cousin of mine that lived out in the Bowden area, and we spent very, very close friendship, and she had worked at Home Hardware for 15 years, and so everyone knew her. Retired, and 5 days found out she was full of cancer. And so this process started, and a woman who loved life was would help everyone, volunteered for everything, and totally community star, and ended up over time in I think it was Foothills for I think it was about 4 or 5 months in the getting treatment, and just said no in the end, and just said no. It was too painful, and she didn't want to go through that, and decided that she just wanted to go home and die at home if she need be, and whatnot. And so my kids had known her as their grandma already, right?
Since sure.
Right? So they always known her as grandma, and and so they knew her prior to the illness, and then they knew her through the whole the stage of death as well. And so we were out there as much as we could to visit with her, and so they were aware she was sick, and they were there at not when she died, but at the service and things like that, to remember her, and we still continue to go out there and spend time with her husband when we can. It's hard, of course, to do anything like that.
You can't do anything.
But it was a couple weeks after that, and I can't remember how old. Maybe Gabe was, maybe my son was maybe 3, maybe getting close to 4, and we're getting ready for bed, and he pops up. Will we ever see it? It was not long after this happened, maybe 2-3 weeks after this happened, and she had her service, and will I ever see Grandma Artie again? And I go, well, no, she's not here. And, you know, and I don't know if you ever will see her here again. She's not here anymore. She's gone, right?
Yeah.
And then you could see him turning, and did Grandma already go to heaven? And I go, yes, she went to heaven. And then you could see and he was okay with that. He was happy with that. They went to bed, and so they're okay with the Christian perspective of the afterlife, and and not having to be sad with those things. And so when their mother passed, it was the same thing. Hey, your mother's went to heaven today. It was okay. There was no tears or crying. Some of that stuff happened later, but I think it was more of an influence from outside factors of family members, like their grandmother and things, who were handle grief differently, right? So
definitely, yeah.
So there's some of those abstract things brought in that they had to handle with. But then they about 3 weeks of off from school and things like that, they were back at it, and they had a lot of support from the school and their classmates, and of course from church and things like that. So it was all good. So they understood the process. They weren't unhappy. I think now when they do, and it's been a while since they do talk about elements of missing her, it's more of a not of a personality or her. It's more of something that they don't have, which is they don't have a mother, and so they got to deal with me. And I don't know, you probably know that I'm in another relationship with a wonderful lady. She's right here beside me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. That's wonderful.
We'll lead in. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Wonderful lady, and so you could never take the place of a mother or anything like that, and doesn't intend to. It's just impossible.
No, I never thought of you as a motherly person.
I never thought of myself of anything like that either. But here I am with 2 babies, right? And I'm carrying around in the child seats, lugging them into work. Right, I often had to bring them to work with me, and one put on my back, one here, and to work in my office, and going shopping, right? And I remember, of course, you always get those real cute memories over the years. And I was in the co-op store, and they had those carts with the racing cars, and but I mean, like, you got them at Home Depot too.
Yeah.
And
all those,
so this is the dad moment where I just let it all go. And we're walking around the co-op store getting some groceries, and they're sitting in the cart, and they're hopping up and down in tandem. The wheels in the bus go round and round, screaming as I was like, I just closed my eyes and store.
Are they best friends, those two, or what? They're pretty close.
Yeah, they're best friends. And probably each other's worst enemies. And sometimes they're right now where they, I watched where, because my daughter was oldest, where she would often pick on my son because he was smaller. Yeah. And as he got a little older and heavier than her, overpower her, and
power dynamic changes things.
Yeah, payback time and
my kids are they're best friends too. They'll only have their fights, like crazy fights too. But they have my brother and I, like my brother who's just a year older than me, we're never close. Growing up, I always wanted to be close, but he never wanted to be close with me. And we were always like that, and it was just so it was tough. And so when I had kids, I always made sure look, you guys may not get along, but you guys are gonna be the best friends you ever had, whether you like it or not. And you're gonna have each other's backs no matter what. I don't care what you do, but
But I experienced similar with my brothers. I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, then another brother who's 2 years younger than that. So we were the top brother and I were close, and still remain close. We grew up in the city, with our families and
Okay.
whatnot. You know, as close as we could be, you know, like maybe a text once a month or, you know, but as that time spread, right, you know, you have a thing such as sibling philosophical things where, you know, where you are in the sibling timeline, right? You know, gives you your personality, and then after about 3 siblings or something, you know, theories are that it begins again. So after you get, you know, starts over again, right? And so you may have the oldest, the middle, and the youngest, then the oldest, middle, and youngest. But that time you're already sort of have degrees of separation, like you would of time, and of course your, you know, some maybe your personality differences, and just time of, you know, what you wear and your interests and things.
Well, like I find with us, with Jay now, it got better. I think we started seeing his now wife. She's just a lovely person, and she loves me, and I love her. And then I think she actually initially she helped bridge that gap between us, which was really nice.
Yes.
And in fact, Jay and I were living together when he started dating her. So, and she and I hit it off really well, and she's just like such a lovely person. And I think that helps. And then after we both got married, then we were, again, I think we kind of changed a little bit and kind of respect each other a lot more. And then we have kids, and now we're actually getting along pretty well.
Yeah.
Like I will visit him when I go to Calgary because that's where he lives, and the kids, like his older daughter, she's pretty awesome. She's a young teenager, but their son is like my boy's age, so they kind of play together a little bit, and so like last year we were there a year ago at this time, or you know, we were playing hockey in their little outdoor rink and together, and it was nice. It was just nice hanging out with my brother for the first time that all the time.
Yes.
So, and it's weird because actually we lived together. We hardly ever fought. It was weird, actually.
That's good.
But those sibling relationships, I'm seeing that with my kids, and I always tell people, like, your kids always, the best part about your kids is that they remind you of yourself, or their mom. And the worst part about the kids is that they remind you of yourself.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. That's the stuff that drives you crazy the most, is the stuff that you see yourself in these kids, are like, and they're making the same stupid mistake that you made, or kind of actions. It's drives you crazy. But then you realize I got through it.
Because there's things that you may do or be, you know, subconsciously that you don't recognize, right, in yourself. And so suddenly you recognize something in yourself with the kids that you may have passed on a good thing, or an interest, or sort of maybe a you know, a personality defect in yourself, or things like that. There's something I've been looking out lately, right? You know, and
but they do those things that you love, and it's like, because that's why I was.
Yes.
One kid is just, well, they both like to read, but the older one is just he reads like you wouldn't believe. And I used to read everything. And this kid is like, and the one rule, my wife's pretty appreciative of reading. She works at the library now. She's a big reader as well too. But like, her kids is like, you go to bed, you stop playing with toys, stop mucking around. But if you want to read, you can read. And we let him read all night. That's what he wants to do. And the idea is that he can be comfortable, and this is a place for him. It's safe. And we were doing that at a really young age, and it's been really nice to see that with our kids. And the one kid more than the other kid. The other kid's more of the artist. The other one, he's more of a likes to draw pictures, and he's more creative.
Okay. Left brain sort of thing, or
it might be more of that liberal arts kid or something like that.
Yeah, that's okay.
They're both going to disappoint me in the politics, I'm sure. So that's what kids do. That's what they're supposed to do. What do you know, old man? Nothing. So
well, I was a commie at one time. You know, as an NDP guy. You know, or Manitoba, Steve Ashton. You know, that's my guy, and
yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I never was. I was always a conservative. Like,
were you? Yeah.
I thought
I think my views. began to change when the reformers with Preston Manning came out, and I began to pay attention. And and then that began to foment at that time. I can't remember what years those were.
Well, 90s anyways, early 90s,
Yeah.
and like 93s when I think Deborah Gray got elected or something like that anyways. 93 was the election, so that's when they became a big power in 93. So they weren't official opposition because I think that's when the Bloc were there. But that's funny. I always like to think of myself, I'm conservative in disposition and libertarian in philosophy. So I'm like I default to libertarianism, but really my conservatism stems from knowing that we don't know all the answers. And that's what conservatism is. I think people say, well, conservatism is like rejecting everything. No, it's not. It's about taking your time and realizing there's trade-offs at every new advance. So progress can happen, but there's trade-offs, and recognizing it. And usually we don't know what these trade-offs are. That's what conservatism is. But people don't really seem to understand that. So, no, conservatism is saying no, and these guys are saying yes, and against progress. Well, not all progress is good.
Yes. You could see that in the Stephen Harper government. People have described anything he did was very timid. But, he was making small changes and analyzing the data and the robots, not making big things, right?
I know, and people just hated him for that. It's like, just wait. So now we got the opposite, and that's what's going on here now. Got the bearded introvert in the parliament now. So, but like we talked just before we started recording too, and you're saying you're kind of getting back to the news, but you shut it off. I'm like, I turn off the news. I've turned it off. I just don't listen to it anymore. I don't trust what I hear, and I don't, because everybody has an agenda. And they say, well, look at those guys. Well, okay, but look at yourselves. And we're not looking at ourselves. And that's the big thing I'm trying to do with this, is talk to people and try to see ourselves. Where am I going wrong? And I don't worry about what other people do anymore as much. Well, I still do, but
it's that, or it's mostly negative in some sorts, but it's also misunderstanding the facts themselves and exploiting it to try and make people afraid, right? Or misrepresenting what was actually the data, right? That happens a lot.
Well, there's too much data. That's what I think there is. And so if you want to find data to support your facts or your worldview, you can find it.
Yes.
It's not hard to do. And again, I think that's that misconception that if more people know, the better off we are. And that's not the way it works. And the ancients understood this. They understood that it's nothing. Knowledge has nothing to do with it. It's all about wisdom, and how do you apply this kind of stuff? Like that's the question. The wisdom's the hard part. And anyone can be wise. That's the other part of it too, if they choose to be wise. But it takes discipline. It takes humility. It takes a lot of compassion and love. I always say love and compassion. And you kind of say, well, that's kind of simplistic. Well, it is, for a reason. That's where everything starts. Because you don't love your fellow man or compassion for your fellow man, you're never going to be able to appreciate what they have to say. Maybe have something that can help yourself, and also loving and compassion for yourself too.
Yes.
It's like such a smart. It's not simplistic. It's very hard to love your fellow man. It's easy to love somebody. Like I can love you, Darcey, because we're friends. It's tough for me to love somebody that disagrees with. I vehemently disagree with.
Yeah,
that's tough.
It's hard.
It's hard. But you have to start from there, and then that's where the font of wisdom comes from. Because the more knowledge you have, it doesn't mean that you're going to have better outcomes.
That's what you do with it. There's something I read, like my better half. She was going through the RN nursing program, so I get to read a lot of this stuff along too. I'm enjoying a lot of the aspects of it. And so they get into the wisdom thing when they're discussing, seniors and so
cool.
That's one thing that's good, that I kind of like, that I'm looking forward to, is that the wisdom keeps growing. As you age, right? And maybe the incoming or ability to to take and synthesize and process new things may decline, but the stuff you've got, the stuff you've been able to fill your bucket with over the years crystallizes, and you're able to, pull and call from that. So it's like, yeah, fill your bucket up when you can.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And wisdom is like, again, it's not about knowledge. It's about the way you interact in the world. How do you interact with other people? The choices that you make. That's what wisdom is. It has nothing to do with like knowing everything. It's about like, do I have to do this? Is this necessary? Just because I can do something, do I have to do it? Like, that's the question you should always be asking. Okay, like I saw there's a great thing I saw this morning, I think it was, on Twitter. Someone posted this picture of Keanu Reeves, who's right up there with Dolly Parton as being like, the one person everybody should like, because just this is wisdom that he has. And his acting, he's still not a great actor, but I love the man. And there's sort of a quote apparently from an interview that he gave that was posted on his little meme, and he's like, I've had it with confronting people. If you want to believe that 1 + 1 = 5, you're right. Have fun. You know what I mean? It's like, if that's what you believe, whatever. Go nuts. And I was like, what a smart thing to say. Like that's wisdom. It's not, he's not even great. Like the point is, like, 1 + 1 = 5. The point is, you know what? We're going to disagree. And I think you're so wrong, but
no point arguing about it. Yeah.
God help you, whatever, And
argue with fools is one thing, you'd say.
Yeah, that's wisdom, right? Like, and who's a fool? We're all fools. Yeah. Maybe we're the fool that people are arguing.
Yes, I know. How much time did we waste in the early blogging days,
I know. Just
doing that kind of stuff. And
so much passion and, insight, and, it develops skills to be able to, do research and skills and frame an argument. That's how I got to Saskatoon. I was blogging, and that's one of the things they asked me to do when working for my company, because I wanted to move back here. Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I said, I want to be a writer, and I had a big passion for resource development in general. So it's, applied to my company, which is uranium mining company, and they asked me. Well, initially I got an interview to be a geophysicist, because that was my background. And I go in there and they said, can you do this work? And I said, yes, I can do this work. It's not what I want to do. This is what I'm good at. This is what I want to do. And I said, I can talk about science and engineering, and I can figure out these kind of things, but I'm not sure what it was. He came back. I actually went to Saskatoon later on. They interviewed me again. What can you do? So, well, I could write, and I know science, and translate basically science into English. And so for example, they wanted an example of my writing. So I took all these screenshots of my blogs. This is how I write. I said, hey, this guy could actually write, has some talent. And it's true, I can write. Yeah. And then that's what I did for my company for 5 years or so. I wrote about industry, how to present ourselves to the public and to regulators and stuff like that. So the blog that we did, it was kind of, I think the information and the messages there is kind of a futile cause. It's not that we were wrong. I was like, what the hell are we doing this for? Yeah. But I did develop, but through that, I was able to develop my skills and my expertise in that, which is, it's funny at the time, you don't think about it that way, but that's exactly what we were doing.
And how to push buttons of the opposition, was
trolls. We had trolls, but then we trolled everyone else too. It was actually kind of fun though. Like, it was not like now where people actually try to get rid of people's jobs and, promote violence. At the time, it was just like, we're just trying to win arguments. It was kind of, everybody's just doing the same thing. It was a good time, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was sort of the Wild West.
It was sort of
social media, before social media.
Yes.
Existed, right? Yes. So, before Facebook.
Yeah. I don't even know when Facebook came out. I think I had an account maybe 2010. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. 2007. I think it was.
Even then, I resisted it. For just never had any inclination to be on it. Or things like that.
I just dove on it.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's wonderful, this sort of thing. So eventually, like, I know because you did woodworking, construction type work, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and design. Actually, that's what you did, right? Wood design.
Yeah. So my background is structural engineering, but in forest products, so engineered forest products.
Okay, sure.
That's my background. So I worked in R&D and manufacturing and then quality control and process controls and things like that at some large plants, and then went back into design for a while, designing with these products. Then went into R&D and doing destructive testing and assemblies and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I worked in the States for that. So that was fun stuff. And then come back to Canada and basically did design again for years, and we were stuck in design till the say the crap hit the fan in 2008, 2009. Then it just took the whole industry down, right? And so managed to come out and do some truss framing and designing and things like that, but it was not my calling by any means, right? Stuff like that. So I ended up morphing over to, I picked up tools again. So I'm happy picking up tools, and so I don't know if you've seen some of my past projects on Facebook that I've put up. Majority of my projects are custom woodwork stuff, like big ones, $1 million, custom projects. And so I ended up going in as an estimator project manager to this small acoustics company in Calgary, and as a startup. It was my third startup, and he goes, and then the boss was like, grow it. And so we expanded, and the first thing I did was, well, I don't know much about acoustics, but the market was at the right time. Can I tender on all these big beams? And he's, I was in BC importing glulam beams from Oregon, and having them machined in the States and stuff, and building schools, and at the time, it's Canada, right? So there's only two manufacturers that sort of own the market. Here I come in and I'm owning every project and doing big jobs.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
Yeah. And I knew the manufacturers because I'd helped them get their CSA approval when I was working in the States. So it took a few years to get that through the process. And it was so new that nobody knew that they had this approval. So I come in and dumped in, and I had a reman partnership with a group in Chehalis, Washington. And so we're doing cool projects, but the thing is, I drove the market down. I drove it into the ground. And then, of course, the US exchange rate sort of climbed. So with the time I went in, it was at par. So this would be 2011, 2012, in that period. And then the exchange rate started to climb, and it just drove profits down to where it was just not worth the risk. So I just quit, turned around and started looking at the prairies and Ontario. And so I worked major projects, started up a Toronto wing to the company and a Manitoba wing. Hired so some of the bigger projects I did were in Ontario, the $1 million ones. But I did some here. I did the Edmonton Arena, the new Edmonton Arena. So all the acoustics stuff was there. So I worked on that for 4 years, putting all that in there.
For sure.
Then, I wasn't in part of the construction of it, but I worked with the architects,
the design part of it,
and the general contractor, PCL, and that. And then from that one, they brought me into another one, which was the destination project in Lethbridge. So that was the new science and technology building. So I worked on that one for 5 years.
Wow.
And from conception to final completion, right? It was a year on site on that one.
Holy cow. Wow.
custom acoustical wood products, and I'll have to send you some pictures one of these days. It was
I'm interested in that.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've been catching those little snippets that you post
Yeah.
on there, so I had no idea like the
Yeah.
magnitude of that sort of thing. And that's
Yeah.
pretty cool because you can actually just work on like just probably not a lot of projects at once, hey?
Yeah, I slowed down at one time. I was doing in the wood project days, I was sometimes up to in design when I was designing with engineered wood, I could probably up to 40 at a time. Very stable.
But that's cool because you used to really focus on
Oh,
what what's needed there, what will work in, in that kind of a space. And
oh yeah, but as I got older,
fun, holy cow.
my ability to manage those declined. Plus, I don't know if you remember, but I had a stroke in 2010 that
I didn't know that, Darcey.
affected. It took me about a year or two.
Holy Christ!
Ever. And you didn't know that?
It's incredible, man. I haven't been gone that long. All this stuff has happened to you. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, it's actually one of the better things that happened to me. One of the best things, and it took me from the crazy hours and things I worked in the super workaholic thing that defined my life, right? It defined everything about me. To a full stop. Right, to a full stop, not just physically, but in my mind as well. So I had to relearn how to talk, and to read properly, develop concentration, and then learn aspects of getting around things that I used to be able to do that was easy. Like some things were example was abstract things or advanced math. Already have never been able to do that or function at that level again. But some things changed where my writing changed. It was my writing changed. It was changed to sometimes very technical and everything backed up by three things. So the way I was trained in technical writing to being quite prosy and things like that, and writing from it. Your
brain gets rewired, right? And it just sort of the patterns within inside your brain just sort of you default to whatever patterns are actually maybe more prevalent in the different parts of the brain. Like
I've got copies of the writing, and I could tell exactly where things changed. There's a slow start of writing new again, and then of course my life changed. Everything changed after that. And but there's the way I thought had changed, and the way I process information and things like that. So I didn't know you didn't know that. It's about a year in recovery, and then getting back into the workforce.
Well, I don't know. We don't have a lot of contacts outside of between us, right? Like say Kate and Lance maybe, but like I'm not that close with them. But we did meet up together about probably 2009 is when I met with. I had dinner at their house, and
I think at that time I spent a lot of time with
and I just and I just had kids and bought a new house at that time, so I was kind of like in my own little world.
That time I spent a lot of time with I don't know if you know, maybe Sean McCormick.
Oh really?
He had helped me a lot, and we spent a lot of time together in that period.
Blast from the past, hey. Yeah, you had actually a lot of good relationships with bloggers, more than I did, right? So, which is kind of cool. Well, that's kind of a person you are. Just develop these little relationships. So, well, that's pretty cool. So, do you still have that business too, or are you the Woodworks? You're still doing that, like as a?
Oh yeah, I
that's still your business.
It's a company called Mystico. So it's I actually still own it now because I work as a consultant.
Okay.
And I've worked as a consultant now for going into my ninth year as a consultant. But I'm actually expanding it now. So I've moved to a different company, and of course I got to expand because
you can't help yourself, man. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so Mystico, it's a makeshift word. So it's a Métis word for builder or carpenter, right? So,
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. So it's where's the word come from? Well, it's an Aboriginal word for,
But I thought like
fascinating.
consulting would be a nice little treat because you don't have to like run a huge business or whatever. But now you're
No, I'm working out of my house and
yeah.
things like that, and which is good. I only have a small amount of customer base. Right now only one, but I'm doing I'm working on some certifications to really expand that because I don't know what the future is going to bring here coming up, especially in Alberta. Who knows? We don't know day to day now what's going to happen for tomorrow.
No.
So it better be.
Well, they get the pandemic, but they got everything else too in Alberta. Like Alberta's going through massive transformation right now. It used to be like the youngest city. Calgary is the youngest city in the country and just booming. And now it's just like people are leaving and
Yes.
it's so uncertain the future there. And it's tough to see because there's so much vibrancy and wealth and intelligence and just a sort of like, let's just go, if you have a problem, let's go fix it attitude, which you never saw in Saskatchewan. Never saw that in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And then I came back, then all of a sudden you started seeing that. But when I left, it was like, if there's a problem, the government will fix it. So I moved to Calgary. It's like, if there's a problem, well, let's fix a problem. You got a problem, let's fix it.
Yeah, just get it done.
And I think that's, God, it's so tough to see that city. That was just everything,
crushed.
When I went there first time, there's such the attitude, everything's changed. Well, there's uncertainty now.
Yeah, things have been crushed.
It's too bad.
I began seeing that even as far back as 2016. I think when the NDP came in and even declined even further, that was a complete anomaly. It was a protest thing, and that was horribly destructive with the Trudeau teammanship. It was just horribly destructive, and no one had any idea that was going to happen. And then of course everything just goes down the drain, right? And that was the decline of downtown, right? And I remember in that early stage.
I loved working downtown there. It was so much activity and vibrancy. Like just every day at noon, I go for my little lunch and you just run into people. What a great place to be. And now there's just got killed. Where's that 40%?
Yeah, it's on Fridays. It's kind of ghostly on Fridays. I haven't been downtown in quite some time, but I remember in the early stages doing project downtown, and there was parking everywhere. Or you're circling blocks to find somewhere just to park.
Try to get a seat at a bar, a pub. Like you couldn't even get into Kaylee's, like the old Kaylee's bar. So, anyways, well, that's where you are. But you're also a pastor now.
Yes.
You told me.
Yeah. I'm not very good at it.
Okay, so what do you do? Like, what does a pastor do? How do you get into pastoring?
I was involved with
where did that come from?
With one of my dear friends who mentored me through seminary and knew me for a number of years. He kept encouraging me to take that step, and I kept saying no. I wasn't ready from that, and it comes from a theological perspective of being in the I guess to simplify things of being in the bullseye, being the target. And from our blogging days, I didn't like sometimes being in the target.
Yeah.
But this case was from I worked with the group for a number of years called Voice of the Martyrs, and still do. teaching and supporting, of course, persecuted Christians throughout the world.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then teaching Christians in the Western world that such a thing exists as persecuted Christians in the world, and why.
We forget that. Yeah.
Deep ingrained theology that we tend to gloss over in Western countries because it just seemed to happen. So they take those perspectives and they turn it into Western theories, like, I should deserve a new car, things like that, that don't really exist. And so I was dutifully aware of this, and I had begun to work in other ministries with our prison fellowship group.
Oh, that's a good one.
I worked with I developed a small group of new Canadians, right? There ended up being 40 of us all together. Started off with, one new Canadian that I watched struggle and befriended him, and then this other family, and then these, and it just grew to a thing. And where I supported these one or two people at the first plate, they were able to turn around and start supporting other ones. So
great way to build a community.
Group of that, and then began working on the Stoney Nakoda Reservation as a support out there for, sort of an underground church thing there.
Oh, wow.
Of course, the virus has stopped all these things, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, I was gearing up. I was gearing up to be growing in these things, and maybe so was the time, and so we went through the ordination, and then this all hit maybe about a month, 6 weeks later. There's been no opportunities to engage anybody, and so I, what do I do? So I fall on somewhat in some of the edges, and I'm a pastor at large too, right? So I'm not beholden to any such church. I don't believe in taking money for doing what I believe to be, God's work. I don't believe in taking money. And as we know in the Bible, we look at Paul. Paul was a tent maker, and he always supported himself. Sometimes he couldn't, but he would take that, if he was in prison or something, bring me some food if you can, or like that. But so there's things like that, but not as a general. He didn't take money to go out and help people, and I don't believe in doing that either. So a separate thing. So I had always been an outsider, sort of, at the church where I was, mostly because I was reaching out locally instead of globally, right? So so what it is the Western Christians were always sending out. So we were 70% sending out to the 30%. Now it's the other way. So now we have the 70% are these Korea or countries in Africa sending missionaries to work in Regina. Things like that.
It's like the Christian community. Like, we kind of think it as a westernized world. Like, well, the biggest, most, like, for Catholics, anyways, the biggest amount of Catholics are in Africa and China, I believe. I think that's where it is right now. At least practicing Catholics, right? A lot of us are, nominally Catholics, but a lot of people are baptized, but they don't go to church anymore.
Yes.
So, like, my priest back in my hometown, he's from Ghana, right? Like, or he was. We have a Saskatchewan guy there now for the first time in probably 20 years or more. But he was Ghana. He had this beautiful West African accent. Rob Anamba. And he called me, "You are a beautiful queen." He said that to my and all my buddies they still talk about the wedding and all this African priest. That's called a beautiful king and a beautiful queen. It's hilarious. But anyways, I get your point though, like, because actually Christianity is actually pretty it's booming in those kind of places. Secularism is dying and is ascendant in the West, right? But the religion of secularism.
Yes.
Nobody likes to think it's a religion. It's a religion.
Yes. No, without a doubt. Yeah. Other ones have
places.
taken in, what were once, of course, political ideologies now turned into de facto, religion.
Have you read Tom Holland's book Dominion? Have you read that yet? You should read that book. It just came out. Tom Holland's a British English historian, and he's written a few interesting books. He's an atheist, but he was wondering where our values, Western values, came from. He was curious. He kind of went back into Rome, and he realized like he's a well-read and well-regarded historian. And so he said, if you go back to Rome, they don't share our values, even though we're a Roman people and we have a lot of Roman jurisprudence and a lot of structures in Western society. But from a values perspective, it's not. Like they would never have thought of human rights is like, what the hell are you talking about? Like slaves deserve to be slaves, and this is where we are, and that sort of thing too. And he says like a lot of, and he details this kind of value. This was where it kind of emerged at this point in history, and almost all these things had to do with Christian thinking, like just sort of the way we kind of thought. And we don't think that way. And so even things like human rights or whatever else, or even like let's say gay rights or something like that, right? It's like that came from a Christian perspective, whether we believe it or not. The idea that everyone is deserved of, treated as deserves dignity in and of itself, just because they're human beings, nothing more. And it's a fascinating book. And at the end of it, he's like, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in this. I don't have faith. But if you want to know where these values come from, it comes from there. And secularism is a value structure that originated from Christianity.
Yeah. So and even we could talk. Yeah. We could talk about the thing. I don't know if he had in the Nuremberg trials, right, where they're got the Nazis on trial, and and we hear it in other trials where I just following orders, and so when you're just following orders, that was it was a law, you had to do that, but they developed a thing where where it was a law above the laws, so there's an actual moral code that's sort of inherent in us that we're actually born with, right?
That's right.
Rape or murder is a bad thing no matter where you go in the world, or
no matter the reason, right? Like so you have that, there's no way to justify that what they did. There's not even, it was completely legal what they did, and there's no moral justification for it.
And so you have some of those moral constructs that do bleed into some of the social constructs of your life, and that's where things can go awry or change, right? And then you're provided these rules or behaviors to sort of follow that you try and drum into your kids to be habits, to to be a good person and work hard in school and things like that, right? But they they develop from those originations, right, of good and bad. But even when you're you can be 2 years old and you could lie to your parents, without being taught, really, and that's built into us as well too, right? So
that's yes, absolutely, it's built in too, and that's why we have these kind of structures and codes. These things didn't come from nowhere. It took thousands and millions of years for us to actually develop these types of things. Well, I'm big into Jordan Peterson. He talks about that kind of stuff all the time. It's like the stuff didn't come from nowhere, and it's a learned thing. And the reason why, these kind of old stories and myths and religion, they tell these kind of stories, is so that we learn them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to tell these stories. We wouldn't even have to have them. We have to learn these kind of patterns, right? Otherwise, it'd be you don't need a story to tell you how to lie. You know how to lie. It's easy. Want to hurt somebody? It's easy. You don't have to. That's why this. If you want to be discriminatory, it's easy to be discriminatory. The hard part is not. If you see that as a value that you have here, the hard part is learning to live together without tearing each other apart. That's a tough thing, and we take it for granted in our society, and we get rid of those underpinnings in our society, those foundations of our society. We do it at our peril because we don't know how it's going to react. That's why I'm doing a bit of a faith journey right now, and so I'm talking to people about faith a lot and like where they're at. And I think it's interesting where people's journeys are. And it's funny how this particular religion, you know, it's not 2,000 years old, it's 5,000 or 7,000 years old if you go by what the Jewish culture believes, you know, like how old it is. That's where it kind of goes back to, that we can actually trace it back to. And it's still evolving, this whole thing. So I like that you're a pastor. I think it's awesome. I think you'd be a good pastor, even though you don't know what the hell you're doing. So
I don't know what I'm doing. Be kind, help other people.
I think it's a good place for you.
One day when this all clears up, maybe I can get back out there again.
Yeah. Do some pastoring here in Saskatoon. You can go pastor over a pint or two. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Give Kate and Lance a call, go for a pint, and we'll hang out or whatever. So, well, anyways, yeah. So you reached out to me last year when my brother passed away.
Yes.
And it was really good. And you gave me some really nice words of advice. I even forget what they are at the moment. I should maybe look it up. But about giving the eulogy, that was one thing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's some pretty good advice there to help me out, because I gave my brother's eulogy and that was tough. And who's going to do it? They all looked at me, Rob, you're doing it. I'm like, shit. So, but I was proud to do it because he was my big brother, right? And we got along as much as any. Well, my other brother Jay and him got along pretty well too. But I was the most like him of all my family members, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and so it always kind of scared me to see, because he was very sick, mentally ill. Like he was depressed and had anxiety his whole life.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that, or we weren't able to recognize it at the time till it was like very late in his life. And so but he was debilitated so that he couldn't even get out of bed for some days. And then he also had diabetes and his foot was always sore, you know, his feet were always sore. He was scared and he couldn't do anything anymore. He couldn't work or couldn't do anything else. And just the poor guy just spiraled down. And then, you know, he put himself in such a state that he basically caused an accident and that took his life.
Yeah.
And so that was tough. But then I see a lot of myself in him, and that's what always scares me. I see so much of myself in him. It's like, what am I doing that's like him? Because I understood him very, very well. And that wasn't great. And towards the end, we're actually talking a bit more. Like we finally started talking. Like I phoned him, but he would never call back or anything. So finally started talking to him. We had some really good talks towards the end. And then for the eulogy process, and you might have found this too, what I really appreciated it because I ended up talking to his friends, to other family members, hearing stories. I went to the bar, where that's the only place he would go, the local bar. And he's a really good guy. Like people liked him. He's a nice person. He's a very nice person. He never saw any value in himself. But he talked to his friends. They saw value in him. They knew what kind of guy he was, the way he treated people. So it was a good way to explore that and get to know him at that level. And then when I gave the eulogy, it's like I gave a pretty honest one, like what kind of a person he was. So anyways, I don't know. For you, I guess you had different experiences. You were living with your wife and you're caring for her.
Yeah. Yeah. I still gave it. And I give it a few, and it was okay. I got up there and I didn't know how many people were in the church until I got up there to speak, and it was packed.
Oh, that's amazing, hey?
I had so many people supporting me, and you know, just there's so many people there, and you know, lot of people just didn't know her, but they knew of the struggle, but they knew me and the kids and things like that. It was just packed house.
Yeah.
And so I give a good 10 to 15 minute talk on things, and it was good. It was easy to come out and do that. I didn't feel sad. I was or anything like that. But you're right. It's difficult to do that. It's also difficult because it wasn't just Christians in there. So, to try not to alienate people that, as well by bringing in, and, but try to take your views, disseminate them enough where they're useful for everyone to take something away, right? And so I was able to do something like that, and put into people's minds, to be good to each other, and basically, because you take life as a pebble, and you drop it into a pond, and you make all these little ripples, and where these ripples go in the end, you don't know where they end up. And, so
there,
all the people that come in at your end of your life, right? If we look at it, have all been impacted by this ripple somewhere. And so what you're maybe viewing is you're looking at the shorelines of someone's life when you're at it, when you're giving a service, and that's sort of the way I sort of visualize it.
Where those ripples end. And
so somewhere along the way, these people were impacted by something did, and in good or negative ways, or positive things, or not. And so to sort of dissuade or the comfort, the person is actually still here. And you just look around the room, because you can see parts and pieces of how we're all joined together in these little nodes, or waves of impact that continue to go on. So,
well, that's a person's spirit, right? And that's what I see it as, right? Even if their flesh is gone, fleshly body is gone, they're still making that impact on the world, and we still sense it. That's spirit. And people say, like, well, what's a spirit? Well, that's spirit, and then you talk about God's spirit. Well, why do you think God acts? That's what God's spirit is. It acts through us and impacts us, right? So at least that's what I'm coming to realize here. I know people only talk about Christianity. I don't really care anymore. I'm going to think about it because it's too profound to ignore. But or I'm not going to ignore it anymore anyways. And that's the way we act with ourselves. And this guy, I've shared his video a few times every Christmas. I shared this Jonathan Pajot, is that Orthodox icon carver. He's one of my favorite guys, and he's French Canadian, which is weird because who's Orthodox? He was actually an evangelical.
Okay.
Who grows up evangelical as a French Canadian, but whatever he is. And then he kind of he got into the Orthodox faith, and he does icons, and he's really into symbolism. In the world.
Like Greek Orthodox or Ukrainian or
Russian Orthodox, I think, actually.
Russian, okay. Yeah.
It's all a lot of similarities between like all these Orthodox. So I've been like, listen, he's actually buddies with Jordan Peterson, did a video with him, and now he makes his own videos. And he's like my age. He's just a young guy, just having middle-aged guy now. Having fun. It's kind of goofy, but he did this talk about how Santa Claus exists. Like, what do you mean Santa Claus? Of course he exists. You know what he looks like. You know what he sounds like. You know what he'll say to you. You can talk to Santa Claus. He'll talk back to you. He's like, what do you think that is? That's Santa Claus. That he actually exists. Well, just because he's like, does he live at the North Pole? Well, Santa Claus lives at the North Pole. I don't know if you go to the North Pole, you see anybody there, but that's where he lives. And then this guy, he's just like, he's a DJ, does lo-fi hip hop type stuff over like really cool, like over speakers or people doing talks online. He makes them into lo-fi hip hop type stuff. So he did one called Obviously Santa Claus Exists after this guy's Jonathan Pajot's talk. And it's hilarious. The song actually kicks ass. It's really funny. But again, he says that's how God actually exists too. It's like, you know what God sounds like. You know what he says. You know how he acts. You know God's the right way to be. You don't think God exists? Well, he's kind of showing you how he exists. Right. And then through my brother, who thought himself a whole failure in his life, right? Like that's the way he thought of himself. I'm not saying he was. That's how he thought of himself. But he was kind to people, and he treated children so well. Like that was thinking about Mark. Children liked him, which you don't see all the time with people.
No, you don't. No.
Kids felt very comfortable with him. Babies loved him. Right? Like that's my favorite thing. Like he hold a baby, the baby just be quiet, calm. And like with some women, you see that, you never see it with guys. You never saw those like kind of grizzly old guys that smell like cigarette smoke, but babies love them, you know. And to me, that's how God acts through the world, through him, and he didn't see that, right? And so we talked about, again, love and compassion. You know, love and compassion starts with love and compassion for each other, but for ourselves, and that's what they say between you and God, because God acts there, and you got to love that, right? If you do that, everything else kind of gets more possible. So that's my faith journey right now. And it might have, I don't know if it started before that, maybe it did, but after the Mark passed, it was more of a, started thinking about it more, taking it more seriously. And then kind of going through this journey, because last year was a hard year. It was a terrible year. But honestly, I feel better now. And I think a lot of it has to do with me talking to people. Like my podcast, when I started doing them, I was like, man, I need to talk to somebody else. And now it's like, well, I get to talk to somebody else, but I don't feel I need it as much, you know? So for you, I get to talk to you. And I've been actually planning on giving you a call before this, but I wanted to do a few of these before I got to talk to you about this.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm actually in a better space than I was, just because I'm talking to people, hearing their stories. And like, fuck, I got a lot out of you today. I had no idea all the stuff went through. You went to just an amazing journey. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
To hear that, and just makes my life better.
I call it, I simplify it, you know, there's the faith will tell you that, you know, God will do things to you or for you to strengthen you, to test you, right? And it'll tell you that he does all things for our good, not just some things, but all things. And so that means even the tough things as well. I simplify it down to peeling the carrot. So imagine you're a carrot and you're getting the rough stuff scraped off and peeled. These are things that happen in your life that could be difficult things that change you. And underneath is the good stuff. Yeah. You get peeled off with your precepts and conceptions of what you should be.
Yeah,
right? What you
that's
think
right.
You are, and what you believe you are. You know, like I was completely identified with my work. That's all my work.
Right.
You know, and you have that all
been there.
Painfully stripped off one thing at a time throughout your journey, and till you become the man or woman you're intended to be. And
so and it's not your intention either. That's the other part.
Yeah,
it's that guy's intention.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Which is different. You don't know that. You don't know the effect you're having on the world.
Yeah.
It's not your job to plan this out. Your job is just to be the best person you can be, or at least try to survive.
Yeah, do your best. Yeah.
You know, by putting it in those kind of terms, it just makes it seem so much, I don't know, it gives me a lot more comfort. I don't have to solve the world. I don't have to change the world. I don't have to do that. That's not my job to do that. My job is to be the best person I can be.
Yeah.
And live the best life I can live. And maybe I can make the world a better place. Maybe I can.
Yep.
And then
righteous and you try and do your best to help and bring others up. And encourage and support other people, and that's pretty much our jobs. And then to reach out, and it's what we're told to do is quite small. It's love your neighbor as yourself, right? It's quite a small thing.
Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not easy.
And actually, it's kind of funny too. I think about Mark here as well too. Like, love your neighbor as yourself. He can love his neighbor. He can never love himself. So it works both ways. You got to love yourself too, and you got to love that neighbor. And
that's a good point.
Shit, how profound is that?
That's good. That's a good, really awesome point. Yeah.
It
makes me. You can apply that to a lot of things, right?
God, it's tough. Like, it's tough though, because like it's hard to do it, and I think it's okay to admit that it's hard. and it's okay to fail in a lot of things.
Yes.
That's a very hard lesson that I've had a lot of difficulty. I too, because I got moved out of the role that I really enjoyed with my company. I got put into a role that care so much about. I like the people I work with, and I like my company. I like, the compensates well, but like really, I'm not really doing what I thought I'd be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and it bothers me. But I'm at the point now. It's like, I can just do my job, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's other ways for me to make my contribution in the world. And my boss likes me, and he values me, and like he's, aside from the day to day, work on this, work on that, but that's a lot of this pride that you have in yourself, right? And you got to just tamper that down. That ego, you got to contain it, right?
Yeah, seeking affirmation for so much, and
what am I doing with my life here? And the idea is like, well, maybe you're doing okay. Maybe just try to find ways that give you sort of that you think that's following the right kind of path. For me, it's really podcasting is becoming that. I really enjoy it. A lot of people give me little messages. They really enjoy hearing these stories. Like, looking at me, we're nobodies.
Yeah, we're small little nothing.
But there's somebody that's going to listen to this. At least that's, I believe, I sincerely, someone's going to listen to this and they're going to get something out of it, and they didn't know what it was. And we don't know these ripples where they're going. We don't know we don't know what shoreline's getting hit by these ripples.
Yep.
Let alone how it's going to impact people. So, man, I love doing this stuff. I love talking to you, man. I miss talking to you.
This is awesome.
This is stupid that we haven't talked for.
We had a couple of years to get a little wiser, and
yeah.
That will.
We had a lot of room to grow, man. You both.
Yeah, of course. But according to the data and the theories, we got many years of new and 72 from what we see.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is enough to talk about, but we can do this again. That's the best part about this. We can do this as many times as you want. It's my show. I can do whatever I want, damn it. So
that'd be awesome.
Let's reconnect later this year or something. I want to talk to you some more, but I think this is probably good enough. And the time on this, people look at the time and say, holy cow, this is like an hour and a half long or whatever it is. I don't really listen to that. Well, they're going to miss the best stuff, man. Usually the best stuff pops up after about an hour I've talked to people. It's hilarious. Yeah. Well, because you get all the stuff out of the way, all the day-to-day stuff out of the way.
Yeah, the small talk, preamble, and things like that.
As much as I enjoyed catching up with you, but I think this last stuff is the better stuff. We'll talk about it some more. Let's read some books and talk some more about what we've learned. How's that sound? Okay, I'm going to turn it off now. Hang tight, but it's good seeing you.